Have you ever stopped to think, what does it cost to follow Jesus? It is indeed a reality that some of Jesus' teachings are not simple. They're not easy, but rather hard or difficult to understand and to follow. Even his own disciples mention that some of Jesus' teachings were hard on at least one occasion in John 6 and verse 60. But in verse 26 of Luke chapter 14, Jesus' statement about hating those closest to you and even your own life itself must be one of the hardest sayings of Jesus. It does not seem consistent with other teachings of Jesus to love your neighbor and even your enemies, as we read in Matthew 5, verses 43 through 48. So how could Jesus say that a person must hate his or her own family? Well, some writers have sought to explain this by saying that Jesus was speaking figuratively, using hyperbole or exaggeration to emphasize his point. Well, there may be something to that, since Jesus often did use language like this in his teachings. Others point out that the word translated as hate can also mean to love less. And this is how the parable account of Matthew reads in Matthew 10 and verse 37. Some of the more recent English versions of the Bible have translated this word in Luke 14:26 as love less rather than hate, to reflect this other meaning. So what did Jesus mean by this seemingly contradictory statement? Actually, Jesus was speaking about priorities and choosing what is most important in life. God and His kingdom should have the first priority in the lives of Jesus' followers, and they must love less their own family and even their own lives in order to put Him first. It's somewhat similar to the thought in the Sermon on the Mount when Jesus said to seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, Matthew 6 and verse 33. Jesus' statement as well about carrying your own cross makes the seriousness of His comments even more clear. Those who heard Him knew exactly what Jesus was talking about. It was a Roman practice to force the condemned prisoner to carry the cross to the place of his execution. This is an image of complete and total giving of oneself. And history has shown us that for some of Jesus' followers, this became a reality as they gave up their lives for their faith. The demands of Jesus are ones that are great, and a person must weigh the cost of such a commitment. The two illustrations that we find in this passage, the man building a tower and a king going to war, were intended to explain this need to count the cost. Verse 33 makes it plain that if necessary, a person must be willing to give up all in order to follow Jesus. And Jesus' final comment about salt is one that is very interesting. Pure salt cannot become less salty, but the salt in Jesus' day contained impurities, and it was probably this that Jesus was talking about. The more impurities that are in that salt, the more the bacteria gets in and the less salty that salt will become. We understand this concept when Jesus talks in the Sermon on the Mount about being the salt of the earth. That salt has a seasoning effect upon the world, and we as children of God, through our goodness and our purity and our morality, we are to have a seasoning effect upon those that we have an influence upon in this life. But he goes on to make a statement. But if salt has lost its savor or has lost its saltiness, what good is it? It is good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden underfoot of men. Once that salt has lost its salinity, there's nothing good left in that. So we as children of God, we have to continue to shake that salt, to be that seasoning effect upon the world around us. And like with salt in the first century, the more impurities, the more sin that we allow to come into our life, the less effective our influence is going to be. And the main point seems to be that becoming a disciple without being fully committed really isn't worth all that much. It's like salt that has lost its saltiness. Friends, we want to thank you for joining us for our program today. We hope that God blesses you with a wonderful day, with a great weekend ahead, and we hope that you will worship with us this Sunday at Pyburn Street Church of Christ, Bible classes at 9 o'clock, worship at 9:50. May God bless you, and have a great day.